In today's show, we have the honor to sit down with Kevin Kruse, New York Times bestselling author, including the 15 secrets successful people know about time management. We'll be discussing some of these secrets in today's episode. Also, we're going to talk about his 3210 email system for processing email. And finally, how does space play a role in leadership?
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performance Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. Kevin Kruse started his first company when he was just 22 years old. He worked around the clock, literally living out of his one-room office and showering each day at the YMCA, only to end up a year later out of business and deeply in debt. But after discovering the power of wholehearted leadership and employee engagement, Kevin went on to start or co-found several multi-million-dollar technology companies, winning both Inc. 500 and Best Places to Work awards along the way. Today, Kevin is a New York Times best-selling author of 6 books, including 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management and the highly acclaimed book, Employee Engagement 2.0. Kevin is also one of the most read leadership columnists on Forbes. Kevin, it is such an honor to have you on today's show. Thank you for joining us and thank you for your time. I know the audience is going to absolutely love today's conversation.
Thor, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, we're going to have to make this a quick one. I know we got 30 minutes on the table, so we're just going to rock and roll. First of all, I want to say I absolutely love the book that came out, I guess about 2 years ago, The 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. We're all about time management, productivity, and execution here. And what a brilliant idea for a book, modeling others, combining that in such a condensed form. It was just like value. It was a page turner. Loved it.
Well, I appreciate that, Thor. You know, at the time, I mean, everybody was just laughing at me because they're like, why do we need another book on time management? But, you know, to your point, you know, I just found there were so many books out there, so many courses out there, and yet so many people still running around claiming to be crazy busy and stressed out. And, you know, as you said, you know, we all know that success leaves clues. So I just wanted to talk to super successful people to kind of write them down.
And you know what I loved also in your new book, which we'll get to in a moment, you talked about what it took to go in there and research about the book and the number of people that didn't even call you back. You know, and this is interesting. I want you to go into a little detail here. Here you are, a very successful New York Times bestseller, and you can't get people to call you back.
Yeah, Thor, it was interesting because, and you know, you kind of sound like a jerk telling the story like, oh, they're not calling me back. And it's not, I don't mean it to come off that way, but you're right. You know, I seek to talk to entrepreneurs and others. And the pitch is primarily in the form of sort of a journalist author. Hey, New York Times bestselling author, I'm writing this book. I'm also a Forbes contributor, so I'll mention you in these articles. And yet 3/4 of the people that I reached out to didn't even respond. I mean, didn't even, you know, it is who doesn't want free publicity, right? And what I got back from a lot of people was, and we're talking about, I mean, I was reaching out to very successful people, but also just solopreneurs, people that have, you know, been doing their thing for a few years to pick their brain. And, you know, they were saying, hey, I'm too busy. No, you know, I'm not going to do this. And yet, you know, Mark Cuban responded to me in 61 minutes. You know, Kevin Harrington, also from Shark Tank, he responded the same day. Guys like, you know, John Lee Dumas, you know, that guy's got a daily podcast too. He's pretty busy. So it's really an excuse. You know, we just all have to make choices about what we want to do. And what I found is, you know, 3/4 of the people, even if they haven't really had that much success, they turned down the opportunity to be in the book and to be in Forbes. And, you know, it's been the best-selling time management book for the last 12 months on the planet. So it's done really, really well.
Well, there's no fluff in it. It's just concept after concept after concept. Try them on, see if they work. And the reason we need another time management book is because no one's listening. They're reading, right. They're learning, but they're not doing. As you know, right. It all comes down to the doing. And what surprised me was you did such a great job of promoting these other thought leaders. And it was like, I'm reading this, I'm like, man, this guy is smart. He's going to go to all these people that are in the book and say, hey, I mentioned in the book, do you want to market this to your crowd?
That's right. And, Thor, it's a perfect example. There's so many ways in life that, doing good for others bounces back. And I'm not pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. And this is for any authors out there or indie authors out there. I'm shocked that more people aren't doing that because, look, I really went all out with that Time book, 300 people that, I talked to and get mentioned. But even in the new book, I reached out to 10 people and kind of name checked a few others. And absolutely, I think it made the book more valuable. They're sharing their stories, their advice, their case studies, but absolutely they'll get a free copy of the book. And I'll say, hey, if you think your audience is interested, share it out. And, most of them will. So it's just, whatever good you put out there is going to come back eventually.
Well, it was a great book. I listened to it probably 3 or 4 times on Audible, and the resources you have in there. Look, if you don't have the book, go get the book. It's going to be the best 15, 20, I don't care if it's $50 book. Go out and get it. It's no, I'm serious. I have probably 600 books in Audible in my library, and there's only a few that I keep going back to. But I hate spending 8 hours listening to a book and getting 4 minutes worth of value.
Right.
Your writing style is just value. And I'm sitting there making notes. I'm actually on my recorder as I'm listening to it, taking things that I want to implement in my routines. So
that's great. I appreciate that because, again, it's if a guy with your level of success and focus on productivity was able to get a tip or two out of it, then I'm happy.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because people say that, it's like you're the productivity guy, right? You're the execution guy. But we're always trying to figure out what works for us and what we can steal from others.
That's right.
Let's try it on and see how it works. I want to talk about one of your techniques that you talk in. I don't know if you talked about it in the first book, but you do in the second. And thank you, by the way. I got an advanced copy of your new book, which we'll talk about, and I got through it in 2 days, 2 nights.
Oh, that's
literally.
Great.
It took 4 hours. I got through it. Excellent. But I want to talk about your 3210 email system.
Sure. And I'm not sure how you handle it, but people generally complain most about email and meetings as being the 2 productivity killers. And, for me, again, after interviewing so many people, what I realized is that highly successful people, they don't check email, they process email, and they schedule time to process it just like they schedule time to do anything else. And a system that works for me, that I developed, I call it 3210, and it's to process email 3 times a day, once in the morning, once around noon, once towards the end of the day. And each time I try to set, kind of like a Pomodoro system, a 21-minute timer. And it sounds cheesy, sounds corny, but when you see these minutes ticking away, psychologically, there's something about it that I'm just a little less likely to open up that attachment right then and there, or to click that link and to go off into the internet. I'm more focused. It's like a game. How many of these inbox emails can I get through in the 21 minutes? And the goal is to get to inbox 0. So 3 times a day, 21 minutes at a time, try to get to inbox 0. And most days I do a pretty good job with that.
Great system. So what about those things that take more time? You just can't knock them out right away. What do you do with those?
I move them onto my calendar. That's the thing. People, I'm the guy it's a little controversial, but I say throw away your to-do list. All you should be working from is your calendar. And that goes against David Allen's getting things done and a lot of conventional wisdom from over 100 years. But if you really want to do it, I say schedule it, don't list it. And the problem is that not only do most people have a to-do list, which is where non-urgent things go to die, but their inbox becomes a second to-do list because they just leave things in the inbox. Well, I just go through the system and every email really quickly, I say, can I delete it? Yes, boom, it's gone. If no, can I delegate it, which means forward it off to somebody? If I can't delete it or delegate it, then will I do it? And if it's 5 minutes or less, I'm going to do it right then and there. But if I can't delete it, delegate it, or do it, because it's going to take more than 5 minutes, then I defer it. And by deferring it, I mean I turn it into a calendar entry. And the system is a little different whether you're on Google Calendar or Outlook or something else. But each one, generally you can just, like if you're using Outlook, you can just drag that email right onto your calendar and drop it in. And it'll pop up the window, ask you for a time, and that email becomes an appointment on your calendar. So that's how I'm able to get to inbox zero so quickly.
Yeah, we have a phrase here in the South called fixin' to. When I got down here in 96, I moved from New York down here, and everyone kept saying fixin' to. I'm like, stop saying fixin' to and just do it. And it's like, why are we fixing to do it? Let's just do it. I use the exact same system. I also have another file that I call my S&M file, my someday maybe file. And it's those things that, I'm not going to do it now. It doesn't belong on my calendar, but maybe someday I might want to do something there. And I'll review that maybe every 6 months or something. And most of the time, if it ends up in that file, it gets deleted because it wasn't important then.
Yeah, that's right.
But
I think one last note on the email is what a lot of people don't realize, or they're not psychologically comfortable with, is most email systems have virtually unlimited storage. So you can just archive. You don't need to delete. You can archive. And the search systems are so powerful that it's like, I know Thor, emailed me 3 weeks ago, but I can't, it's not in my inbox. Well, you just search on Thor and you're going to find it. Search on a subject, search on the date range, search on a weird word that you remember. You'll be able to find those old emails. So, clear them out, stick them in a folder somewhere. And I think it's a lot better than leaving them in the inbox.
Absolutely. I want to switch gears here for a moment and switch over to your podcast, Extreme Productivity. Love the title. Absolutely love the title. I noticed in my career as a podcaster that I learn a lot from my guests. A guest will come on and I'm sitting here. At the same time I'm doing the interview, I'm taking notes. A matter of fact, I just grabbed yours. Successful people don't check email, they process email. Wow. I mean, that's awesome. So what are some things that you discovered through your guests over the years that you just kind of sat back and said, wow, that was really interesting?
Well, I'll tell you, Thor, what I've done is, so I paused the Extreme Productivity podcast, which was primarily a monocast, and I'm launching a daily show, which I know you know a little bit about how that works, and it's called the Lead X Show, LEADX, and that launches on March 6th of 2017. And so I've been interviewing, a guest a day. And you're right. What I'm finding is I'm filling up my notebook unexpectedly with little phrases and tips. And so there's a lot of them. I'll give you an example. There was one day where I was interviewing a lot of leadership experts. And the phrase that really struck me from multiple guests said they were talking about leadership and space, meaning they were like almost as if physical space was their metaphor. And they kept talking about, I wasn't giving people the space to fully develop, or I would enter the room and take up all of the space and didn't realize it. And I had never really thought about, I never used that language or even that thinking. And yet that stuck with me. And in the weeks since, I've incorporated that with my small team, and I'm thinking about almost as a physical nature. Do I need to lean back? And I don't mean, I was a close talker, I need to take a step back, but, as a leadership way, do I need to lean back and give them the space? And it really did change my thinking in that way.
That's very interesting concept. It's interesting. One of the things I also love about what you do is you come from an entrepreneurial background. You started companies, you sold companies, you co-founded companies. What you're talking about is real world experience. And I think there's so many people out there that are talking about a subject that they just read about.
Right.
You and I have been in the trenches. We know what it's like to get to Friday and not have payroll because it's been our company, right? It's like not everyone experiences that.
Usually it was my payroll that didn't happen that Friday.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I remember, at least in my journey of the last 17 years, sometimes it was theirs. I was like, I guess it's time for a capital infusion from my bank account. Because you got to make payroll, right? You got to take care. You got to take care of your people. Every peak performer that has ever lived or will live does one thing extremely well. They know how to take their ideas and execute on them. Ideas and knowledge are not power, but the ability to execute on them, that is real power. If you consider yourself a peak performer and really want to take your game to the next level and truly master the science of execution, I would like to send you some information about our upcoming event, Business Execution Summit. Simply take your phone and text the word BE Summit, one word, to 41411. And I'll send you some additional information on how to master the most important skill you will ever acquire for your life or your business. Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com. And I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners. And if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin. Click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day. That concludes part 1 of our interview with Kevin Kruse. Please stay tuned later this week for the conclusion, part 2.